So, warmly welcome everyone to the third of our Projector Fireside Gathering, where we hear about people's lives and we look at their charts and we hang out and get to know what different people's experiences are of being a projector. And today I'm delighted to be talking with Ron, and Ron is right now living in Portland, Oregon, and he's working as a community building assistant. He works for a large nonprofit that deals with homelessness, and I'm really interested to explore this because it's something that Ron's experienced himself. He's been through a lot in life, and I'm really delighted with that he's here to tell us a little bit about the journey with mental illness, alcoholism, drug addiction, and he currently works in a building for low-income people that are suffering with mental illness problems. Being a projector helps him to be empathic and compassionate with people. And he's a truther. He describes himself as a truther. He searches for the truth about everything. He has been a truck driver, owned his own lawn service, has grown medical-grade marijuana for children with epilepsy and people with chronic ailments like MS and cancer. And he's now 1 year into his experiment and looking to decondition more and more. Human design has been a lifesaver for him to explain why he had addictions and burnouts over and over again. So he's diving right into human design, and let's hear from Ron. What was it like? How did you first come across human design as a thing? Do you remember where you were?
Yes. Crazy enough, me and my wife had we'd broken up. We were getting a divorce, and we were selling our property, and she was going to Florida to live with her parents, and I didn't know where I was going yet, but we stopped at her son's property in Mount Shasta, and he had this girlfriend, and we were all sitting around talking, and she goes, "Have you guys ever heard of human design?" And we go, "No," but we were open to it, and she did all our charts, and turns out that my wife, my ex now, was a generator, and I was a projector, and her son was a manifesting generator, and this girl was a projector. And so she kind of gave us a little synopsis, explained to us that, projectors work with generators, and it all made sense. Like, stuff started to just oh my God. And while I was there for a little bit, kind of figuring out where I was going to go next. And so I got to look at this book, and I started to find out what it meant to be, what the different types of auras were, and what it meant to be a projector, just a little bit. And it all started to make sense for me, and why I had so many problems in my life. And this didn't happen until I was 50 years old. So close to my 50th birthday, I get this insight to a little bit of who I am, and so and it has turned out to be eye-opening and enlightening for me. And I want to learn more. And I want to be able to learn more to help other people, because, you can't keep anything unless you give it away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? And then at the same time, you've also got to earn the right to share knowledge and share what you're solid. So it's a nice loop.
Right. Yeah, and the more, in this last year of experimenting, the more I learn, the more I'm like, oh my God, gets scary, because it's very complicated, and you find out little different things, about transits, and about what do these arrows mean, and what, and then there's a PSH and how you eat, and it's it gets a little bit overwhelming, a little bit scary, but You know, it's, I guess it's like anything. You just take it off one bite at a time kind of deal, you know, right?
Yeah. The old joke about how you eat the elephant, isn't it? The old one bite at a
Well,
time.
and like stuff like this, like I'm really grateful that you're doing this, you know, and that you're not asking any money for it. You're just doing it out of the kindness of your heart for us projectors, that we can learn about each other. And as you know, as time goes on, you know, like everybody has a little bit of different way. I didn't realize there were so many different projectors.
Right, we
You
have
know,
so
I
many
was like,
variants.
oh my God, there's so many different projectors, and there's,
Yeah,
you know, there's like only like two generators, but there's like seven or eight different projectors, you know. So but it makes sense. So why projectors are so different. So
yeah, it's been really interesting because you're the third person, and if you look at the charts, we have Melissa on first, and she's an emotional projector, so obviously an
right,
empathy projector. So
right,
having defined centers like the emotional center defined, I think she has the root defined as well. And then last week we had Simran, and she's the same as you. She's a classic projector. So there is some definition below the throat, obviously, but none of the motors defined. So, you know, for anyone listening, obviously the motors are the lower bottom, the lower four, the bottom right four centers there. And so within the classic projectors, there's obviously some of them are going to be splenic, which is what Simran is, and then obviously you're self-projected, and this means your authority is the G center, right? And that's connected to the
yes,
throat.
right.
So
So
if we follow that
from
sequence,
what I understand, that it means is that um, I have this ability to, I mean, it's like a magnetic monopole. It's a self-directing device. So it doesn't kind of go with, it doesn't go with anybody's idea of how things should go. It has its, if I follow it, it's kind of an intuitive thing, and it tells me whether to go right, left, you know, when to be in the perfect place at the perfect time. I call it, now that I really know about it, and I know I've always had it, you know, and it's protected me in the past, you know, being on the streets or whatever. It's been my protection. It keeps me like one step ahead of danger, you know. So it's told me where to be in the right place at the right time to benefit from life and keep me protected. And so I'm grateful to it. I'm grateful to know what it is and how to use it now. That's and how to get the most benefit out of it. And I've always kind of had this way of talking to people and giving them advice, and then after it's all over, I'm like, where did that come from? Like, that didn't come from my brain. And it would always feel like it came from my heart or somewhere, you know, and people would be very appreciative, and I'd get recognition. It felt so good, you know, that there. And then, so
I got a few friends who are self-projected, and one of the things I find really interesting is that it feels to me like there's like an unpredictability about it, which is like, I don't know what's going to come out next. They might not know what's going to come out next. It's never boring talking to someone who's self-projected, who's just letting that come out through the throat.
Correct. There. Right. And it's not always been a positive thing for me. In my times, I've said stuff, and it's been the truth for somebody and for myself, but they didn't want to hear it. They weren't prepared to hear it at the time. And it's caused me to not, you know, to ruin friendships, marriages. It's not always been of, oh, he's, you know, the words of angels are coming out of his mouth. You know what I mean? So, it's now I'm learning that, oh, I guess I have to wait for an invitation to say this and let it flow. Like, if I just like jump in and let's start taking off with it, it's yeah, it can be a bad thing. And I didn't have that ability to keep my mouth shut sometimes and know when the invitation was, or that there even was an invitation.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that, you know, we don't get the manual when we're born, you know. Like,
Yeah,
I get
right.
the
You had 50
manual. I
years.
get the manual at 50 years old,
Yeah.
and that's because the manual hadn't come out yet, you know.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
But
you know, Ra often says, doesn't he, that this human design is for kids, that it's for so that we can avoid them getting so screwed up or struggling so much.
and that's yeah, that's awesome that these new kids that are coming in. I totally believe that there's, you know, the new crystal kids, the new generation of kids. And hopefully we can stop the line of abuse that's happening in my generation and the generation after, you know, has been horribly messing people up. You know, we all got complex
Right. And
post-traumatic
I guess
stress
you
disorder
would
because of
feed
it.
that.
And, you know, so
Yeah.
I didn't have kids myself. I didn't want to bring that cycle of abuse to children that, you know, so I just chose not to have kids. I saw the world as a really horrible place and not for kids, you know. And I'm learning to think that that's not, maybe I wasn't totally correct on that. You know, it could either be heaven on earth or hell on earth, you know, depends on your perspective.
Right. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you know, you've had quite a journey in life. Were there any high points of your life that once you understood human design, you looked back and you were like, oh wow, I was really recognized there. I was really invited in that scenario. Like, when you look back on it, do those moments stand out?
Yeah, I think the one that stands out the most was basically the last. It was like the last 10 years prior to learning about human design was in 2008. You know, when we had a couple of halfway houses. Me and my wife had a couple of halfway houses in Reno, Nevada, and we were helping people get out of prison um, and get off drugs, and it was mostly for women. These women's halfway houses, and then so we had bought a couple houses on the bubble. And there was a housing bubble here in America, and I'm sure you're aware of it because it affected the whole world.
Right.
But so anyway, in 2008, the housing market crashed, and we lost all our equity on these 3 houses that we owned, and so we ended up having to sell them. I mean, a good thing came out of it that the nonprofit that we had, it turned into a bigger, bigger empowerment center. They turned a crack motel into an empowerment center, which is still there to this day, like helping people off the street and help people off drugs and women. It's a good thing, but it crashed us. Like, we ended up having to short sell all our houses. It was devastating. I don't know how we made it through that point of our lives without getting a divorce, but it was devastating. And then but her son was out in California. He was growing medical marijuana for patients, you know, and for himself. He had some issues that was dealing with himself, and so he was having some problems with the workers. And I kept going out there to his farm just to visit him, and it was beautiful. It was out in nature. It was on the South Fork. It was by Chico, California. It was just the most beautiful thing in the world. And I was telling him what was going on. So basically, I was a truck driver for a construction company delivering concrete. And when the housing market crashed, the housing building went to a standstill. So I went from making, $40,000 a year to being on unemployment.
So you had a double whammy. You lost all the equity in your profits and your cash flow as well at the same time.
Yeah, just started to stop, right?
Yeah.
And so my son's like, hey, you know what? You have a great work ethic. I like your philosophies. I like, who you are. And I got some problems with workers here. They're lazy, da da da. He goes, I'd like you to come out and help me. And I wasn't I was a drinker, but I was never like a marijuana smoker. And and he explained what the whole idea was that, it was all legal. It wasn't like we weren't doing anything illegal. We were just growing for patients that couldn't grow for themselves.
Mm.
And I was like, So that was the invitation. And it took a little bit of time for me to like grasp that around my head. that was the best thing to do. And when I find
Oh, we've just lost you a second. I'm not sure if it's my end, but let's.
Yeah, it like shut me down here. Am I
There
back?
you are. It's all good. We got you back.
We're all good? Okay.
Yeah, I can see you clear.
Okay. All right. So
You were just saying
anyway,
about the invitation to go and work with the so let's just
yeah.
recap. So you've lost the equity in your homes, you've lost your job, but you've got this invitation
Right.
to go and enter into this
Right.
project here. And you
This
weren't
right
sure
that was going on. It was kind of like the new gold rush in California, at the time. This was in 2009, I guess is what it was. And and it wasn't pleasant to be at my house all the time either, because we were going through so much drama around these houses, and we were trying to get refining our mortgages and all that kind of stuff, and that all ended up being a scam too, and so anyway, I did end up going to California and helping him out and still living in Nevada and learning the whole process. And I got to be, it was like kind of owning my own business, and then being able to just follow my magnetic monopole. And it turned into like 7 years of doing this on that property, on another property, and then a third property we got on our own. And we helped so many people. We ended up growing for the CBD project, which actually ended up saving a baby's life. A little 9-month-old baby had a tumor in her head, and she was at St. Jude's Hospital. And this lady that we were growing these plants, they didn't have any THC in them, so they don't have any psychoactive properties, right? And so they're all just CBD, highly designed just for that. And then they take them out, get the CBD oil out of it. Anyway, these people, she had cancer of the brain, and St. Jude's had pretty much just given up on her and said, you're going to have to let this baby go. And they weren't going to do that. So they knew this lady, our friend in California. And at the time, we were just finishing. These plants were in our garden. She called me up. She says, hey, this is what's going on. Are those plants ready? I'm like, really close, but not totally ready. She goes, well, they're ready enough then. And we get them to her lab. They process it. These people were ready to the doctors were ready to let this lady's baby go. They got the medicine to her, which was St. Jude's out in, I think it was Minnesota or something like that. They go against doctors' orders. Doctors don't want them to do this. And in 2 weeks, the baby's tumor in her head shrinks by 30%. They're able to pull the tubes out. They're able to feed her. Her seizures stop from 300 down to like less than 10. Like, and the doctors are just in awe. They're
this
like,
is amazing.
Oh my God, this is insane. What is this that you get, right? And so after this all happens, the baby ends up going home, and I guess living. She's alive today. And my friend that had this CBD project, she ends up going and talking to doctors at this big symposium about this whole thing about CBDs and how they heal people, and I got to be part of that, and kind of in a, it's just I only get to. It wasn't like we got fame or fortune or anything off of it. You know, I only got this story, but at least I know I saved a baby's life in my life one time. You know, like, so my whole life wasn't a total loss in all the things that I've.
And the ripple effect of as well of those doctors discovering that, and then them realizing there is such a thing, and you know, you have no way of knowing quite how big the ripple from that has
how big the ripple is, right? And it's becoming, you know, as you can see, like the legalization, decriminalization, legalization is rippling across the United States now, and people are, you know, they're using it to heal all kinds of stuff, and we kept going
world,
on.
Right? It's going out across the whole world, like, you know, it's a thing.
Yeah.
So you were there at the start from that invitation. You were early days of that process.
Early days of that, yeah. And so, we got to so that, you know, and I got to see how just left on my own, I could be out in nature and follow my intuition for stuff. And I had it's like I had a great attention to detail, taking care of these plants in a garden. I had to be really, because there's pests, there's all kinds of, you know, and so that was, I think, was a success. We helped an immense, not just a baby, we helped all kinds of people with MS, cancer, all kinds of illnesses. People were really grateful to us for what we did, for the work that we did, you know. And I ended up, I had caught Hep C from using intravenous drugs with other people on the streets. And what ended up happening was I started taking hash myself, and over the period of a year, the marijuana cured my Hep C. So I no longer have Hep C because of marijuana also.
Amazing. Amazing.
That was awesome. That was awesome, because that was like killing my liver, you know?
Yeah. Wow. So that was something when you look back, you're like, yeah, there was the invitation. You entered into it in a correct way, and that was very rewarding for you. And I guess like the G Center for me, like I want to share, like, you know, my sense on it's a bit of a mystery because I have it undefined, and I often feel like I have a sort of lack of solidness around my purpose. And I always find it interesting when I listen to people who, you know, self-projected projectors who have the G connected to the throat, and I listen to you talk, and I'm like, yeah, because I've got my ajna connected to the throat, so I've got the 2343 freak to genius. I've got the right angle cross explanation, and you know, that one's also all about timing. Like, I can be a genius if it's the right timing, or a freak if it's the wrong timing. But when I listen to myself talking, and then I listen to self-projected people talking, I definitely feel like the voice is coming more. It's more to do with purpose and wisdom in the body, whereas mine is more to do with ideas. And I almost have this slight envy of that you self-projected have this kind of, you know, it's almost like if people listen with their hearts, they'll just stop and listen when you're talking. And that's something that you know, for me, I feel it's probably the open center that I find the most enigmatic as far as debugging.
Right.
So, but I can definitely hear the difference in when someone self-projected gets going, and when, not just when they're talking about their ideas or speaking from the mind, but when you guys speak from the body and just comes out. There's real gems that come out of from there. And you know, I'd like to explore that a little bit more, because you talked earlier about, you know, waiting for invitation to, you know, give someone else that guidance. And my understanding of self-projected authority is that you discover what's true for you by you listening to the words that come out of your mouth. So do you feel like there's a distinction, like, you know, do you feel like sometimes you're just talking because you want to hear your own truth, and then and you don't need to wait to be invited, and then other times, if it's actually you trying to guide someone else, that you need to then wait to be invited? Like, how does that work?
I think the thing for me is like I talk to myself constantly.
That makes
So,
sense.
and I used to think that was like a mental illness, but now I'm finding it's my gift, you know?
Hell
And
yeah.
so when I'm processing stuff for me, I'll just walk around the city and talk to myself. I think it's awesome now that everybody's got these headphones in and nobody really knows if you're talking to somebody on the, it used to look like I was crazy talking to myself the way
Right. Right.
and and I would try to, oh, was that out loud? I didn't mean to do that. But now nobody can tell whether anybody's on the phone or not.
They just
So
think you're having a phone
you
conversation.
can just walk down the street talking. So that's how I process. But when it's with somebody else, I know now that that information is for me now because of HD. But in the past, I always thought it was for them, just for them. But I always liked what I said, and I was like, wow, I could follow that advice too. But I never did, and that would get me in trouble too. So I wish I would have known. That's the hindsight is 2020. I wish I would have known this at 20 years old. Could have saved myself so much heartache and headache. But hey, now's good. I still got a good 40, 30 years left in me to
right.
to enjoy life. And so, but
now you're 50 and you're a 4-6 profile. So just for anyone who's listening who isn't clear on profile, is it all right if I just break that down a little bit and maybe you could share about your experience of it? So there's the conscious and the unconscious. So your conscious is your conscious sun and earth are on the 4th line, and which is the opportunist, and then your unconscious is on the 6th line, which is the role model.
Mm-hmm.
So the conscious is sort of how you feel yourself, but then the unconscious is almost like it's a hidden talent a bit. And this 6th line is very interesting because it goes through 3 periods up until around about 28 or 30. The 6th line is like a 3rd line, which is all about making lots of mistakes, getting things wrong, having a whole lot of experiences. Then from round about 30 to where you're at 50, it's being out on the roof. And it's almost like digesting and processing and integrating all of those experiences in order to have the wisdom to really be a role model to people. And being this thing of being called back down from the roof to actually guide others and be, a source of wisdom in the community. So when you look back, up through those first 2 phases, does that line up with your experience of what you've lived so far?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely made perfect sense. Is that in my 20s, I was just out there making mistake after mistake after mistake, and I ended up in jail a few times, got a few DUIs. I couldn't hold jobs for very long. I couldn't understand what was going on.
And do you think part of it was being a projector? Because you said some of it made sense, but like, what do you feel like looking back? It was just, was there something driving all of that? Was there something underneath it, or what was?
Basic survival. I feel like I think I've been in the dark night of the soul for about the last 30 years or so. And, it's just been basic survival. And I get these periods, they come, they're like waves where everything's going good for a while and new job, new girlfriend, new everything, and, place to live, everything's good. And then, the burnout will come somewhere in between the 6 months and a year. The depression will come. That's a given. Like I know that now that I have to deal with depression. And so at like about 38, I stayed sober for a few years, like 5 years, and the depression did not go away. I thought, oh, maybe it was related to the alcoholism and drug addiction. It's there, and it's gonna be there. I get it. I just went through one this last year again, and so I don't take medications for this stuff, so I have to do it naturally. but I did notice from 30s to 50, my life did get better. You know, I was able to be more mature, not make the same mistakes. And now after 50, I feel different again. I do feel different. I feel totally more mature. Like I would never make the same mistake. And I guess that's, you know, given me the leg to stand on to be, you know, not homeless anymore, and to, you know, have not drink anymore, not drink or use drugs. And, you know, so I feel like I got a good shot for the next 30 years. So.
I mean, I get a sense of, like, you know, like if someone's gonna be a role model, that it's kind of like to have gone through, like you haven't really talked yet much about the experience of being homeless, but it's I don't know the statistics, you probably do, but what percentage of people that go through that and are really homeless get back on track? It must be a small percentage of people that manage to do that.
Yeah, it's very small. You know, most people that are dealing with mental illness on the streets are they just go through the cracks of life. You know, if they have at least somebody trying to help them to get them into low income housing, or get them on Social Security, you know, on the disability, so that they can at least pay for that housing. And then a lot of the times, you know, it's really sad about it, is somebody will get them into housing and they'll get them on Social Security so they have food and their rent's being paid, but they have episodes every year. Right. And they end up being manic or bipolar and don't pay their rent. They go out and spend all their money on gambling or drugs or whatever, and end up being homeless again. It's just this vicious cycle of, you know, mental illness, homelessness, drug addiction. It's a
And so what were the rungs in the ladder that helped you to kind of climb and build out of that scenario to like, what's your time scale on it? Like, what was the journey like as you experienced?
I experienced it since my 30s. Oh, even before then. It was, yeah, all through my 20s and 30s, on and off. And I would end up in treatment centers, and I would, like I said, I would do really good. I'd get a job, new girlfriend, everything would go good for a while. And then the burnout of the job, like, because it would be a labor job, it wouldn't be something that I could handle. And, you know,
so like generator work, doing generator work.
Generator work, right. Yeah. And I would be able to keep up for a while, but inevitably you know, the depression, the hate for the job, like I just couldn't show up at work anymore. And so this happened over and over, like almost every year for, you know, the last 30 years, which is, it's tragic. I inevitably have to end up starting over all over the, you know, with no clue of what's going on other than you have depression and mental illness. Here, we want to put you on this medication. And so, you know, I tried doing the medication thing, but it just made me like a zombie. I couldn't function. It like took that thing away. It like suppressed myself. And, you know, you know, I had to make a decision. I was like, well, I can either try to deal with this stuff on my own and be who I am, and just, that's what's going to happen. That's life. Or I could be on this zombie medication and I'll just be a flat line, walk around, you know, and I wouldn't be able to work. Like I wouldn't be able to work. So I would have to get on disability, and, you know, that would be my life, you know, be on disability. But so I made the decision that I didn't want to do that. I chose that I'm going to deal with this illness. You still there?
Yeah, just pulling up your chart.
I was going to deal with the mental illness, and I wasn't going to take medication. I was going to deal with it on a more holistic level. And that's what I've been doing for the last, I don't know, since I was about 38. I think I've been relatively successful at that. I mean, I've had a few episodes where, you know, things went really downhill. And I know now that I'm just, you know, going to have to deal with depression. Now, I mean, is that just part? That's what, kind of why I wanted to do this is like, I'm starting to see, like, with the stories of other projectors, is that, oh, there's a common thread here. That we're all dealing with periods of depression or burnout, or like, and why is that? Like, that's what I want to find out is like, can I
Yeah.
figure out why it is? Can I
What's
figure out
going on
a
and how do we,
solution other than zombie drugs,
yeah, yeah,
or Prozac? And I'm not taking Prozac, so.
yeah. Well, I got a few things I would love to jump in and kind of is your screen
Okay.
showing your chart there? Can you see your chart coming up?
Yeah, I see it. Yes.
Yeah. So just for anyone looking at this, that's like, oh wow, that's a really a different chart. This is an advanced human design chart, and it's got all the same basic information, but you'll notice that after the symbols have, instead of, like, say if you look at the moon, which is to the right, it's 38.2.1. So that's your conscious moon is 38.2, which is, it's breaking it down into another level of detail, and that gives
Right.
you other things like the environment and the motivation and the transference. Now, for anyone that's new
Okay.
to human design, just watching this, all I want to say is, if you're new to human design, just stick to the basic chart to start with.
Yeah.
Ron talked about it a little earlier, and I've had this same experience of getting a bit overwhelmed with some of these rabbit holes. So we're going to look at the basic, just the gates and the channels is what I want to look at. And
Right.
are you familiar with the melancholy gates and channels?
I wasn't until like a couple months ago. You started talking about it we were on that first trial of doing this.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about this melancholy, and I'm like, oh, what? Yeah,
Right,
I didn't know anything before you said it.
okay.
So now
so
I'm
this is
starting
really
to.
interesting. This is really interesting because, if people have no knowledge of human design and they expect us to be like generators, see, just by being a projector in a generator world, we can appear to have depression, because when there's no energy, we've got no energy. And specifically, right. I have that, and I'm an energy projector. And when I was trying to train for sports at a high level, I would have a week where I was on fire and I was training better than anyone else. And then there would be weeks where I had nothing. Now, as an energy projector, especially the energy that's coming off the root and the spleen that's connecting those, it's really essential that we burn that energy off. But when we don't have energy, a rigid, structured, consistent training program is not suitable for us. But we're in a world where that's what I think you have to do to be successful in a sport or in a job, for that matter. Be consistent, show up.
Consistent, right.
There's no allowance made for the fact that we might show up and in one day of the week get 4 days worth of work done. But then, we might need 2 or 3 days of the week off to go and do nothing.
Right, exactly.
So, I think projectors more than generators, everyone has flows of energy that ebb and flow. For projectors, even more than generators, having that knowledge and having that confidence in, actually, maybe there's nothing wrong with me. Maybe this is just how my energy moves. So I had a coach who was on the edge of saying, yeah, you've got depression. But I was sort of like wary of really taking on that label, because it seemed to be sort of, well, you'll have it for the rest of your life. And it just seemed like, I don't know, I didn't want to feel like there was something wrong with me. I once took ecstasy, and I found that really amplified it, because it was almost like, I used to talk about having a barrel that was sort of, my mojo or my energy, and that it was a sense of feeling full. And this was like, 10 years ago, before I'd come across human design. I was still trying to train at a high level with triathlon, right? And So my experience was this sort of up and down. And when I was up, I just used all my energy up. And then when I was down, there was nothing left. And it felt like the time I had ecstasy, it was almost like I was able to fully empty the barrel of all my feel-good feelings within a space of a couple of hours. And then I had nothing. And I had to wait for it to trickle back in, like drip, 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 to have any sense of energy or feel good, or, you know, it'd be like trying to charge an empty battery with a small solar panel, just having to wait for there to be enough charge in there to do basic things like run the lights or the pumps, or, you know, that this battery is like totally empty. So that was sort of my personal experience. And I never did take medication, but, you know, it would have been amazing if I'd had a coach who, especially with triathlon being such an individual sport. I mean, rowing, you got to train with a crew when I was doing that. But triathlon's a very individual sport. And actually, the depression forced me to take time off training. And I actually ended up having a really good, you know, my key race went really well. So what I'm going to do is I just want to challenge this assumption that there's something called depression, and that, you know, that we shouldn't have high energy and low energy sometimes. Now, let's go back to your chart, Ron, if we can, because I want to break this down. And for anyone who's watching this, you will almost certainly have some gates or probably some channels that are in the individual circuit. So let's break this down. And again, it's not something to get too obsessed about, but it's not something you have to know about. But if you're watching this and you're new to human design and you think, oh, well, I do have some of those individual gates and channels. So is that showing up there, Ron, with the 3 different types of circuits?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's a very low res image. It's probably not the best one, but we'll just go with this one for now. So the left is the collective, and the collective is pretty much always the channels that are on the outside. They're the 2 train tracks on the outside going down the middle.
Right. Okay.
Outside going down the left and the right, and the outside going down the left and the right at the bottom. So it's like the perimeter of the whole thing and the sort of central train track. Now, if we then go to the individual circuitry, it is pretty much in the middle. Wherever there's 3 channels, it's the one in the middle. So down the bottom, those ones that connect from the root to the spleen and to the emotional center, it's the middle of those 2. And then the 2 coming down this way from the throat, it's the middle. It's the middle all the way up the central channel. And actually, there's the K-shaped, it's got the integration circuit and some other circuits. They're all part of the individual, and then also the G connecting across to the ego, which is the channel of initiation there, which the ego projectors all have that channel. So they're all individual. Then we go on to tribal, and the tribal circuit is like a loop connecting round the red one, the will, across to the spleen, down to the root, up to the emotional, back to the will there. And then also those 2 channels that connect the sacral. And then we've got the money channel going up to the throat. So that's the tribal circuit. So we're talking about individual circuitry. And if we go back to your chart, are you familiar with which ones you've got that are on the individual circuitry? We can go through and pull them out, name them, and then we can look at what it means.
So on the individual, I think I got 20, gate 20, gate 12.
Let me just grab. Is it showing on your screen there your chart again, just so people can follow? Let me, Ron. There you are. Is your chart showing up there? Let's pull it up again. Okay, I'll do it once again. Just figuring out the tech a little bit here. So here's Ron's chart again. Just give me a chance to catch up. So you're saying the 20. So that's the throat, isn't it? Going down towards the spleen.
Go right. Yeah, the 20 going. Yeah,
20.
it doesn't connect with anything. So
So that's a hanging gate there. And then you've got the
hanging
12 on the other
gate.
side. There's a hanging gate on the other side as well.
12 on the other side. So do the middle ones coming off of the, going from the sacral to the G to the throat? Does that
Right.
middle line right there,
Right.
is that part of it?
It's the middle of the sort of the third rail going right down the middle. They're all individual. So you've got the 8-1.
That's all individual.
Which is a
So
channel.
I have 8-1, right?
Mm-hmm. And then, so that's your channel that's in the individual circuit. And then you've also got the 2. So the 1 and the 2 are the yin and the yang. They're the most yin and yang. So they're opposite on the G center.
Right.
And then you've got there's one more. I think you've got 38, haven't you? Let's just zoom in a little. So this is a bit easier to see.
38, right.
So let's just see. So we can see there going from the root up towards the left is a 38. From memory, I think that's the fighter. It's part of the channel of struggle. I have that channel. And
Channel of struggle, okay.
yeah, the channel of struggle. Nothing ever comes easy.
Right, exactly.
And then we've got the 2 and the 1. The 2 down there is a hanging gate. Yep. And then we've got the 8-1. And then you've got the 20. And then you've got the 12. So what does that mean? So melancholy gates or channels, it's like it's this very individual flow of energy that comes in pulses, and it's not predictable or dependable. It comes when it comes along. And I've got a diagram here that shows them. So let's see if we can share this one. This is one of the things I found that someone shared along the way. So it says it's from mybodygraph.com. I don't know the source of it, but whoever did this did a great job here, because you can see where everything is. So is that coming up?
We lost you there for a minute.
How's that now, Ron?
We lost your picture there.
Is that picture coming through?
No, there you go. Now you're coming through.
We'll give it a chance to catch up. Thank you, Ron. So is this image coming up with the melancholy gates on it?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that might be Tom chipping in there. Hey, Tom.
That was Susan.
Oh, sorry, Susan.
That's all right. It
You're
sounds
the
like a
only
guy
two who are
there.
unmuted, so that's all
there it is.
good. So
There it is.
so there it is, right? So we're gonna look at if we can remember which were the gates that which are the ones that you have. So you had the 20, right?
Have the 20.
So the 20, the melancholy of the 20. Now, what happens is when these gates have this pulse of energy, it's kind of like springtime. It's kind of like it probably feels good if because we usually identify having more energy with being better than having no energy. So the melancholy is like what's our trip when we don't have energy? So the 20 is discomfort with the world as it is now. So do you remember you were saying about not wanting to have kids because you just felt like it wasn't a good place to bring them into?
Yes.
So that
felt like that for
this feeling
forever.
of discomfort with the world as it is now.
Yeah.
Melancholy. So now we're going to go across to the 12 on the other side of the throat, going down to the right. Melancholy that there is no one worth telling anything to.
True. Yeah.
Then we've got the 8, which is melancholy about no one paying attention to them.
True.
So, you may be brilliant, but no one sees you, or because you're in the wrong situation, or whatever it is. And then opposite that, the
projector struggle. Yeah.
The struggle, right.
One.
So then we've got the melancholy about not being seen as different on the 1, on the G center there.
Being seen as different?
Melancholy about not being seen as different. So, for a projector, not being recognized.
And not being recognized, right.
And if you're trying to fit yourself into a generator way of living, round peg in a square hole, it's not
right. And even before I knew about HD, I would tell my generator wife, I would tell her, I am not the same as you.
Yeah, I'm not
Like,
cut out for
we
this.
are not the same. I cannot do exactly what you do. I can't keep
Right,
up with you. And she
right,
was 10 years old. She was 10 years older than me.
right.
I mean, like, it felt so horrible. Like, geez, I can't even keep up with my
Yeah,
older wife.
yeah, yeah. So then there's two more. There's the two, which is the melancholy about things not moving fast enough. And then the 38, which is not knowing what to fight for.
True. Yes. That is true on all of those for me.
So I know people often find it really useful to, when in a state of melancholy, this thing about people saying, oh, I've beaten depression. And, what you were saying earlier is it's like kind of a cycle that may well keep repeating. And, it's like autumn and winter and spring. And, that's how I feel for me about these melancholy gates, that there's sometimes when there's no energy, like when I have energy, I'm on. But when there's no energy, what to do? Just wait. Just chill.
Right.
And in that time, it's like, yeah, okay, I've got that fear and I've got that doubt and I've got that bit of melancholy and that gate and that gate and that gate. And it just helps to have them named and be like, oh yeah, I'm on that trip. Because without the mind getting too involved, it's not really a problem. I'm just waiting for the energy to come. And
right. And that's exact. Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that when I have no energy, I feel just as good as when I have energy, because I don't. Because I fucking love having.
No way. No.
I love being, on and doing these calls and feeling like I have something to give. I love that.
Right.
And however, what I have noticed is that the more deeply I dive into my melancholy and stop trying to force it. I mean, I can't really anymore, because it's like the power's been turned off. But the more deeply I go into that, it's almost like what comes out the other side when the energy does come, it's really good and it's really insightful and pure. Whereas if we never give ourselves time to go into that emptiness, that stillness, those dark places, well, how's good stuff ever going to come through, right? Like, how do you have a baby without being pregnant? It's like the forces all go inside, and then when it comes out, when it's ready to come out. So that's where I'm at. So
I agree. That is that's great insight, because the world would have me believe that there's something chronically wrong with me and that it needs to be medicated. And so this is like freedom. Oh, now I can just understand, like, low points it's not full on depression. It just might be this melancholy, and I might have a down look at the world, and just it gets tough when you have to go to work every day, because you don't want to. I'd rather just stay home and sleep or rest. It would be nice to be able to create a life where you have the freedom to do that, and that's why I liked working on the farm, because I did have that freedom. So, if I felt melancholy, I'd sleep whenever I wanted, and when I had energy, I would do what we were supposed to get done. That was a nice thing about that, and I wish I'd known more, but that's fine. It's all, I'm getting to know now, like how to deal with this melancholy. That's and not beat myself up, because I kept going to doctors trying to figure out and they thought I had fibromyalgia and threw a bunch of pills at me, and then I have all the same symptoms as low testosterone, right? And for a while I did have that, and got on some treatment, and that helped a little bit, but the melancholy was still there. So that wasn't the solution. And then I got it again, and I thought it must be the low T. I went and had my test done, and everything's like I'm way above normal, so that's not it. you know.
Right.
I try to eat right, take care of myself. You know, I don't exercise because I'm a projector. I just don't exercise. You know,
You're a non-energy projector, so
I get enough
about
I get enough exercise at work, kind of thing.
sure.
But so now it's just knowing this is going to be a little more freedom to like not have this. You have to do this, you know, like this thing where you like, I have to be a generator. I have to. That with HD just all goes away now. You
And
know?
that's the voice of the conditioning, right? That's the voice of like, you know, you need to show up every day. You're supposed to have energy and,
Energy.
you know,
And be in a good mood. Be happy.
right. Be
Right.
careful and don't bring up. But I would be surprised if there's anyone watching this who is a projector who has never felt these down times of like, hey, you know what? Right now I've got nothing. And, you know, we can try and fight it for a certain time, but ultimately it's like, you know, maybe the higher self is just going, nah, fuck you. You got no energy right now. Stop trying. You know, I'm really going to pull
Right.
the plug. So you have to.
Pull the plug, right.
Could I
Stop.
add something quick? Could I add something quick?
Oh, please do, Susan. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. This is great. I just wanted to add real quick. I'm recently retired, and I'm fairly new to HD, like a year or so.
Uh-huh.
And I'm so glad that I got into it when I did, because being retired, initially I was feeling really guilty, you know, because I wasn't busy all the time. You know, when you're retired, you're supposed to do the gardening. You're supposed to take care of your grandkids all the time. You're supposed to do all this stuff. Well, with
Right.
HD, I'm like, I don't have to.
Nice.
I don't feel like I want to do that today. I want to read today. Or I want to go swimming and then come home and read. I don't, because of HD, feel that pressure anymore. It's so freeing, like you were saying, Ron. It's
Right.
so freeing.
Yes. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It makes
I
sense.
can't wait.
Because
Can't wait to be retired.
Well, it just means you're old, Ron, so you don't want to be as old as I am.
I mean, Susan, all those things that you should be doing. If you're a generator and you're retired, and those things give you joy to go out and move and do the gardening and hang out with the grandkids and go on adventure holidays. If those things give you satisfaction as a generator, then full power. Why not? But this is where, you know, if we as projectors, we're just 20%. So if we let society tell us how we're supposed to, you know, we got to kind of stand our corner and know that we're different. And, you know, it's that thing of like, hey, welcome to the projector club. We're different.
Right.
Different, right.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
yeah. And I lived as a generator for many years.
yeah.
Many years.
Yeah, that's
So,
another club, right?
Right. Yeah. Don't include me there.
Hi, my name's Dunstan, and I'm I'm a reformed generator.
Reformed generator, right.
Exactly. Exactly.
I've been living as a projector now for 3 years. I'm sober.
So, I'm so happy.
Great to hear from you, Susan.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So we're on about an hour. This has been awesome, Ron. And is there anything else that you wanted to explore or share? Like, if you were talking someone through your chart, would you? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about?
Well, I'm just learning. You know, I think it's good for people to know that. I don't know if the people that are new to it, and I've started just to get in the last month now about the transit thing, you know, and knowing that I have this hanging, you know, we talked about it last time or the time before that, where like we had, what was that?
It's the 22, isn't
Melissa, I think Melissa.
Yeah.
Had the gate 12, and now we are in, because of the planetary movement of, what was it, Uranus or Neptune?
Neptune.
That we have gate 22, so now I have this constant, now I have, you know, what's been my is I have a totally open solar plexus. So, and that has caused me a lot of problems in my life because I avoid conflict at all. Like, I hate conflict. And so
can I break this down a little for people watching who are maybe a little new? So we've got, as a self-projected projector, he's got 4 defined centers. So they're colored in. They're the 4 at the top middle. And then he has 5 that are white. Now, the one over on the right side, as you look at the diagram, has not a single gate activation. It's totally white. So this is called having a totally open solar plexus, or a totally open emotional center. It's the same one, the solar plexus and the emotional. And when these centers are open, they can accumulate conditioning very easily. And there's a specific kind of conditioning in each center. So this particular center, well, you were saying it earlier, it's this thing of where am I avoiding conflict and truth. So this is debugging the open centers. So anyone who is not emotional authority has this theme of where am I avoiding conflict and truth that can be very fruitful to have a look at. And especially when your voice is so activated from your G center, it must be a very interesting thing to have things to say so that you can hear your truth, but then at the same time not wanting to piss people off.
Right. Start conflict where I have to defend myself or exactly.
Right.
So a lot of times my whole life I've just shut up.
Right.
And I keep it to myself, you know. Unless I get some alcohol involved, and then I can't shut up.
and I guess also you have a for those who just looking at this, you've got the split definition, right? And you have does this count as a wide split, Ron, or is it's not just a gate that you need need a whole channel to bridge it, don't you?
So explain that again, like how that works. Where is my split? Is that
of the 4 centers, you've got 2 channels. So if we go from the top, we'll just zoom in a little here. So you've got the 6447 on the left side. So that's in the collective circuitry. So the top 2 centers, the head and the ajna are connected. So that's about information, ideas, and questions flowing between the 2. Now, if we look lower down, we were saying you've got the G center connected to your throat, which is about speaking about direction, and that's the 8-1.
Okay.
Now, if you then look at the green and the brown, there's no connection between the 2.
Okay, so that's where the split is, right there.
That's where the split is. Now, oftentimes with split definition, it just needs one gate to complete it. So, for example, if you had gate 43, then you just need gate 23 to bridge that split.
Right.
But you actually need a whole channel. So, for example,
somebody.
Right.
So could it be a couple people to do that? Is that what the deal is?
It could be someone's got the 43 and someone's got the 23, or you're in a cafe and someone's got the 11 and someone else has got the 56, and so. But what it means is, like, you've got. Imagine the centers are islands, and the channels are like bridges. So that's where information can flow back and forth.
Right.
So, as a split definition, self-projected, you may find at some times that you've got like ideas and questions that are taking you in one direction, but then what's coming out of your mouth about your direction and purpose is taking you in another direction.
Correct. Yes, I see that. Right. Yes.
Bridging the split is a way to bring those things together. So it could be the current transit. It could be a relationship with a significant other person, either a romantic relationship or a business partner or a colleague or whatever, or it could be through the current transit.
Okay. And
for split definitions, I'm split def as well. We're all about relationship is how we feel whole through relating with others. Now, when you look on Jovian Archive about split definition, it talks about the wider the split, the more we feel we need to happen in order to feel whole. So with a really, it's like some people have, they need a whole center, you know, so like they need they've got the same top two centers you've got, and they've got something else down here. So they need the whole center to be activated. And don't quote me on this, but it was something to do with like, you know, we needed something from the whole world to feel that.
Okay.
Now you need a whole channel. So this is something to look into. I have the 43, the 2343. So that bridges your split.
Oh, okay.
So that's in our dynamic.
You make me feel whole, Dunstan. You complete me.
Oh, Susan, have you got that one too?
I have got the 4323 is blank. Okay. The 11 is it 35? 1135 is also
36.
there's no
56,
conscious or
1156.
56, yeah.
That's the channel.
Right. That's also blank. And then my 17 to 16 is both. It's conscious and unconscious.
That will be the 1762, I think.
17, right. 1762, right.
So you've
just a little bit there. It's a hanging gate. It's not.
You've got a hanging gate there. Okay. Yep. So that's something to note. Have you gotten much into variable, Ron? Because you've got quad left, which I haven't seen very often.
No, I'm not sure. Somebody told me that I was quad left, but I don't know what that means. I would like to know.
So these variable arrows, again, this is for someone who's been in human design for a while, but there's two red arrows pointing left, and there's two white arrows pointing left, or black arrows pointing left. And so what they say is that variable is to consciousness as the body graph is to form. So it's about your consciousness. It's about the way you think, the way you perceive, the way your mind works. So
that's pretty important then.
Well, I'm pretty new to this too, but my understanding so far is that when these arrows point to the left, that it's to do with the left brain, which is the more focused analytical part of the brain, and when they point to the right, it's like the more artistic side of the brain, for want of a better way of. Now, anyone who's a human design purist is probably going to be horrified listening to me talking about this without really knowing it. However, I really trust that whoever listens to this will use their own intelligence. And, you know, we're not sharing this as a class. We're sharing this as exploring and learning together. So that's what we're doing here. So my guess with this is that you find it naturally, you can be quite analytical. You can focus on the detail. Whereas someone who's quad right is probably going to be more dreamy and more like, you know, just more sort of have that creative, expansive way of sort of seeing everything.
Right. I see that. I'm maybe that's why I'm in the search for the truth about everything, is that I'm very left brain, and everything's got to be, you know, I have to know what the answers, the right answers are to everything.
That sounds like it fits to me. So, you know, I know there's a group for quad right people, but you know, as we have these conversations, we'll learn more, and you know, when we get some insight, we can talk again, and we can share more of what we're learning along the way. And I think it's, for me as a learner, I find it really refreshing to see there's other people on this journey learning stuff, rather than, oh my God, I'm new in this group and everybody knows everything. So I like the and I'm a 3-5 as well, so I don't mind making mistakes and learning as I go along. So that's all good.
Right. What about the PSPHS? Can you tell from that chart or does it to have it on there, or is that
the chart still showing, Ron?
Huh?
Is the chart still showing? Let me pull it up again. So there's your chart. Yeah, so there's all these things in here. So if we go down the information on an advanced chart, it's all pretty standard. We've got, we haven't talked about the right angle cross of the Sphinx yet, but that's
Right.
that's an interesting thing to dip into. And we get down to bitterness, and that's all the kind of regular human design. Then we come down onto your orientation is focused, your determination is hot, your cognition is smell, your environment is shores, your personality base is binary, motivation is hope, and your transference is guilt. So they're the kind of opposites of each other. So while you're waiting for invitation, if there's something that speaks to your sense of hope, if you feel, if I do this, like you hope that this is, it's a sense of hope that you have. That's a nice thing to know about.
Right.
But when you're acting out of guilt, feeling guilty if you don't do something, that's transference. That's the not self.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah. So hope and guilt. There's three different pairs. So my motivation is need, and the opposite of that is fear. So when I need to do something, it's cool for me to do it. So, and I won't say too much more because I'm not confident enough to get it right. But I think that it's to do with the smell and the hot.
Okay.
Mine is sounds high. So I'm supposed to. I'm thriving in environments where there's a lot of noise.
Oh, okay.
So
Nice.
I'm guessing it might be, I've heard maybe something about smelling your food before you eat it or something. But again, don't quote me on that.
Okay. I'll do more research.
That's something to check out.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's just briefly, should we look at your incarnation cross for a little bit here?
Yes, please.
So it's one of only 2 incarnation crosses where all of the gates are on the G center. So if we look at can you see on the personality side in the purple color, you've got the 13 and the 7, right?
Right.
So the 7 is your sun gate, and that's one well worth learning about. And then you've got the 13 as well.
Okay.
And then on the unconscious side, you've got the 1 and the 2. And the 1 and the 2 are the most yin and the yang, or the most yang and yin of the whole of the hexagram.
Right.
So if you look at when they're drawn with those bars, the 1 has all 6 bars colored in, so it's the most yang, and the 2 has all of those bars broken, so it's the most yin. And they sit on opposite ends of that magnetic monopole there. So both of those are in your incarnation cross, and then you can see the 7 and the 13 are either side of the 1 there.
Right.
So it's the only other incarnation cross that has all of the gates in the G center is the vessel of love. So that's the other one that's all about the G center.
Okay.
So people with those incarnation crosses usually have the G center defined, but not always.
Oh, okay. Right.
Now, there is a resource that I use for incarnation crosses that is very much not official human design. But if you Google incarnation cross, it comes up as the top hit because there isn't that much information about incarnation crosses. The human design books, the official books, are the way to get that information, the official information. So this is someone else's interpretation, but let's have a look and see what that's just coming through. So you can see that the right angle cross of the Sphinx is there, but this isn't the right one for you because this is starting with 1 and 2, whereas yours starts with 7, right?
Right. 7, 13, and then 2, 1.
Right. So it says the incarnation crosses. Is this window coming up?
Yes.
So
I've been to the site. Yeah, I've read the.
Yeah. So you got to look there, so you basically look for where's your sun. So your sun's on 7. So we zoom down to 7, and then we look across, and there it is, the right angle cross of the Sphinx, number 3.
Oh, number 3. Right. Okay.
Now, for anyone who's new to incarnation cross, it's the same as profile, There's nothing to do here. You know, if you're looking up your incarnation cross, it's not about trying to live by what it says. However, over time, when you follow the strategy and the authority, which obviously for Ron is waiting to be invited as a projector, and then the authority is the G center, so it's listening to the sound of his own voice. As he does that consistently through life, this pattern is going to start emerging. So it's got the names of each of the gates. It's the role of the self, the listener, higher knowledge, and self-expression. As the cross of the Sphinx, you bring leadership to guide and direct as your energy supports vision for the future. This is probably the most active cross of seeking leadership. But the drive for leadership in you will depend on your profile and the rest of your chart's composition. Fundamentally, you have the design to look at past patterns and project where they are moving to. It makes sense as a projector, right? To spot these patterns.
Yeah. Right, and it kind of sounds like as a role model too, right?
Right.
Right.
So this is your greatest asset to bring forth in your leadership. So I'm quite excited because you're coming into this third phase of the sixth line.
Right.
As a role model. So that's pretty interesting. So it'd be cool to watch you for the next decade or so and see how that all starts clicking.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
Hopefully not so much headache and heartache anymore.
So let's pull up your 4-6 by profile. So these are some fun little graphics that I've seen recently that someone's done. This is quite a fun one. They've done them for the 12 profiles, and yeah, it's I think Jan did these. So this is the 4-6. It's the opportunist role model, and the fourth line, the opportunities are all about the opportunities through the people that you know.
Right.
So in the cartoon there, we've got these kind of your two buddies there on the one side, kind of like, you know, hanging out and helping figure things out and giving you good invitations, hopefully. But then your inclination is to want to be the role model as a 6, and that's your unconscious is your 6th thing. So I don't know if you've seen this one before, but I thought it was quite fun.
No, that's cool.
I downloaded the set from another Facebook group. So
but the weird thing is, like, I've been I'm pretty much a loner. I don't like hanging out in groups of people, and so I don't have a huge group of people that I'm can be opportunistic with. So that's kind of like felt like it's caused me problems because I don't have that big friend network that opportunistic people usually have to get their opportunities from. So we'll see what happens in the future. But
yeah, I mean, bear in mind the projector aura is one-on-one, right? So it's not necessarily that you're going to be hanging out in a party with 100 people,
right?
But I wonder if because you must have helped a lot of people through your different work you've done with the halfway houses and help supporting other people, and
that's that's to this day. Like I just always kind of go out looking on the street to see who I'm going to help today, and it can be just little stuff like opening a door for somebody. It's just little random acts of kindness kind of keep me from being so melancholy. You know what I mean?
I've also seen you in the last, since I got to know you, I've really felt you networking within, like, you've been and commented on the other videos that we've done, and you've been quite active in, in that networking sense. And here you are sharing your story, and, so that feels like very fourth line for me. Maybe it's just a case of,
right. That's true.
Finding your people.
Right.
Your people
exactly.
You.
Yes, that's true.
So
let me ask you. You said projectors work one-on-one. Can this has kind of been a question. So I've been in relationships with women who are generators, and so usually I'm working with them, right? That's kind of my job. Does is that the only person you can only work with? Does that you can only work with one at a time mean, like, if there's two generators sitting in front of you, you can only work with one at a time? Or does it mean I wouldn't be open to any other generators because I'm with my girlfriend at the moment, and until she gets rid of me, I won't be able to work with anybody else. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, are we talking personal relationships here, or
Oh, yeah, I guess personal relationships, or yeah, just is it that question has always kind of confused me, or that statement of we can only work with one at a time. And I just didn't know if, like,
right.
I'm working, I can't work with a whole group. Does that mean I just can't work with a whole group of people? It's really our auras are isolated to just dealing with people one-on-one. Is that
break it down step by step. There's a few different angles to this, and I'll share what I feel to be true, what seems to work for me, right? So can you feel how in this conversation we've got projector, focused and penetrating aura? It's very, there's not a whole load of space in the conversation for someone else here. Do you get what I mean?
Correct. Okay.
So I find when I'm talking to two people, it's very strange. It's
right.
It's like the focus goes there if we're in a triangle, and then the third person speaks, and then both you and I focus on that person. But it's kind of like the focus is kind of, it's like a laser. It only points at one person at a time, right?
Right.
So that's the first thing. So if, in working with a group, so how does a projector work with a group? Now, you'll notice this, like I'm gonna point out this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk, that he, a lot of people like, oh, he's all in his not self and blah. But I don't like labeling someone as this person's not self, this person's in their design. For me, it's more subtle. I see traits that people have, and I think, yeah, that's a projector trait. So when he's talking to an audience of thousands of people, he loves to take a question and focus on that one person and, really hit them with the answer. He's talking to one person at a time. Now, if someone is interesting and potent and they've been invited, it's very beautiful to watch that going on. Notice how there's other people watching us here who are just watching, and they're just waiting and watching and witnessing that encounter.
Right. Okay.
So that's how one to many can work for a projector, right?
And that's different for generators, right? Generators they love groups of people, and
yeah, my guess would be if you're in the audience and it's a generator talking, it's like, rather than feeling like there's a laser that's connecting with that person, like John Martin talks about hitting. He says the human design Hawaii guy, he says you hit there, and it's very like, whereas the generator aura is open and enveloping.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So how I imagine, I mean, I don't generally hang out with like big groups of generators, but that feeling of kind of being a part of something and being included, and that person's heart's big enough for everyone and they're kind of filling the space in the room.
Right.
Whereas we're more about like, that charismatic kind of like just that one-to-one thing.
Right.
And that's why, we go in a room and we're invisible until we're invited. And then oftentimes, I don't know about you, but if I'm invited, if I'm asked something and I wait and then I answer, all of a sudden people stop talking and pay attention.
Right.
Because we're here to see and be seen, but only when we're invited, right? So if I go in and start trying to cut into a conversation, it's people just ignore me totally.
Right.
So now, one other thing was, I heard somewhere or read somewhere that Ra was talking about one generator working well with one projector working well with 4 generators.
Hmm.
So if there are 4 different sets of generators working on things, they might come and spend some time, maybe 10% of their time saying, oh, Ron, can you guide us to be more efficient in what we're doing, or how am I doing? Or, they're coming to you to get some direction with an invitation.
Right.
And, it's way too much for them to just be they're probably going to have had enough of being penetrated. They're going to want to go and get on with doing something because they're generators. Then there's space for another generator to come and get your input and invite you there. So, maybe you could be spinning a few different plates like that with different generators that you're supporting. But it sounds like you're in that role a bit as a guide for people who are sorting their lives and going forward.
Right. So I usually deal with people one-on-one anyway. So I was just curious if it was like, I understand now. I understand
Cool.
how it works.
Cool. Yeah. Well, test it out, and if it resonates, and come back with results and what's working.
Yeah.
Is there anyone watching who has any questions for Ron based on his chart? Anyone want to make any comments about what they see? This is an invitation to other projectors who are here on the call. If they want to jump in and share something or type something into the comments. I don't think there's any comments in the chat.
I just want to say that I think, Ron, you're a pretty amazing person, and you've done wonderful things for people over the years, and I think you should really cherish that part of yourself, because you just seem really kind and caring, and that's very much lacking in this world right now. So
yes,
as much as you can, and without being like Roz says, not on an ego trip, but just as a human being, you just seem, we need more people like you.
Right.
I'm going to have to scoot pretty soon, but this was fascinating.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Susan.
You're welcome.
I mean, I think that's one of the things I really learned from Ra is that, now I know through HD, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I can just be myself, and, I don't have that defined ego, or I don't have a will, so not to beat myself up for not finishing anything. And like Susan said, just be, I do good things in the world, and
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I think we all do. That's
You're welcome.
what our job here is as projectors, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I can see that you have a real network of. There's a lot of people that you've helped. I really get that sense in the world that, directly, and also the ripple effect we were talking about earlier, right?
Right.
So one of my mentors, who is a projector, shared that one of his mentors told him that one of the challenges is that, there'll be thousands of people in the world that he's helped, but there'll never be any recognition for it. There'll never be any, they may not even realize themselves, because that's the power of the aura.
Right.
That, just by being around a projector who is clear, other people get clarity, and it may be nothing you even said.
Right.
Just your presence.
Yeah, and I guess that's now. I don't really have a drive or a ambition or anything like that, and I've kind of gotten down on myself. Like, you don't have drive or ambition like generators do. They're always wanting to start businesses or do this or do that. And I'm like, I don't really ever want to do anything, kind of thing. But I do. One thing I do want to do is try to decondition. So just that I will be clear in how I'm living life. So that's the only drive I have into the future.
I love that, because the more we can decondition, the more we can debug our centers, the more we can come into alignment. It's like you're going to get invitations, and are you going to be ready? Like, the more ready we can be, You know, it's like if you're in the military and you're training to be ready to go to battle. Can you still hear me, Ron? We've just glitched a little bit here. Can anyone else hear me? Might be my end. Damn. I'm back.
Hey, back? We lose you there for a minute?
Back. My
Okay.
pencil is overheating. It's a hot day.
Yeah, I was just talking about the having to deal with conditioning is not always fun. You know what I mean? It's it comes up, and it usually comes up in drama, in some kind of dramatic way, some kind of way of feeling, and I'm not always looking forward to that part of the journey, you know. But I am well aware of a lot of my conditioning that's going on, and I've put an end to a lot of it. So, you know, hopefully this next phase of the development, the next phase will be fairly nice to me. Not so hard to where, you know, you don't want to live on the planet anymore, kind of thing.
Well, I hope it's it seems like you've been through a fair amount, so you know, I hope you stick around for a bit longer to enjoy the phase as the role model.
Right. No, just learning about you're going to be melancholy. You know, I would love to know why and when that comes. Does it have something to do with the transits? You know, that way you're like, oh, here it comes. I'm going to be melancholy for a little bit. Or if it's just, you know, you run all your energy out and you're going to be melancholy for a little bit. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes there's that dilemma of like, you know, if you hang out with a bunch of generators or you hang out with a generator, you receive that energy, but it depends on the quality of that energy for me. If it's like how the generator's energy is coming towards me, like if they're trying to get me to do what they want them to do, or they're trying to manipulate me, or they're just like frustrated, or they're, you know, it's quite intense. So, you know,
or use you as a laborer.
Yeah, so, but depending on my state of clarity, you know, I'm going to attract whatever kind of energy comes towards me. So if I'm copying a lot of frustrated generator energy, I got to have a look at like I've noticed recently, not just generators, but I've noticed recently, since I've been sharing videos, I've had a lot of connections from women in the projector group who are just like reaching out to me, and kind of, it's almost like there's a sort of an intimacy there one way round, but I don't know them at all, coming to me and saying, oh, I thought you might like to look at my chart, or I thought you might like to tell me about this and that and the other. And I'm like, well, I do these calls, and, you know, maybe you want to do a call and stuff, and that's something that feels really juicy. And I've got space for coaching clients, but you know, I'm full-time running my hosting business here, and, you know, it's that kind of like, it's like kind of flattering in a way, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you know, I'm you know, in my not self, I get quite excited. I'm like, oh, these people are interested in to know me, and cool, she, you know, she looks cute, or she sounds interesting, or whatever, or he looks, you know, it's like, you know, I mean, we've connected a few times, but it's nice to feel this is I just like how we can invite each other to do this, have this kind of connection here in this format. So you know, I know people get a lot of value from listening, and you know, if we have any mental projectors who want to go next, that'd be amazing. But any type of
that would be cool.
Yeah, super welcome. Like you said, there's so many types. We might even get an ego projector who wants to come
yeah,
on.
we need to get one of each type.
Right.
How many? Oh, there's like 5, isn't there? Is there like 5?
Yeah, we've done the energy. Well, we've done the emotional authority. We've done splenic authority. We've done Now we've
Splenic,
got
right.
G center. So then we need
Center.
we need the mental projector, and then we need the ego projected projector.
Ego projected. Right.
And then if we wanted to be like totally thorough, we could then say, well, there's splenics who are classic and there's splenics who are energy. So we haven't yet had a splenic energy projector on yet.
Right.
So, but look, there's plenty more weeks in a year, so we'll see who pops in next. And anyone watching this who is interested to, either Ron or someone else who's interested to go through and make some time stamps, you know, this is going to be like an hour-and-a-half recording, maybe even a bit longer. So anyone that wants to say, you know, after 15 minutes and 37 seconds, they were talking about the G center, or, you know, that kind of thing, that can make it really helpful to people who don't have time to watch through the whole thing, to be able to refer to different points in there. So there's the option to add that into the description on YouTube when we put it up.
So in the comment section, is that what you're talking about?
Right, and you can put in
Of
little links.
of the YouTube.
Yeah, so then people can click and they can go straight to, you know,
Straight
open
to-
center,
right.
not self theme for emotional center. Oh, let's see what Ron has to say about it. Like, click.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's something that, you
I'll
know,
try
when
to
you
do
watch
that.
it back, you might want to, you know, if it flows naturally. I think with projectors, we don't need. It's an invitation. If people want to do that, then it's something.
Right.
That, you know, I don't know if I'll get around to doing them all. I'm also open to paying someone a little bit if there's someone who wants to take that on in our community and who would enjoy doing it, that would benefit from you know, would enjoy watching the videos and would like a little bit of money to you know, sustain them while they're waiting for their next invitation, then that's an option too. So
Nice. That's very nice of you, Dunstan.
yeah, thank you, Ron. Thanks. I feel seen,
Yeah.
and I appreciate what you said earlier as well. And you know, as far as doing this, you know, I just want to be. I get energized by doing this, so it's kind of selfish, and
Yeah.
it also feels good that it's, you know, a successful projector. We're all about the other. And you know, with my cross of explanation, I love to explain things, but it works so well this, because it's like, you know, it's far more interesting talking to you and looking at your chart and stuff. It's far more interesting hearing a bit about your life, and so that's than just talking theory. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Or trying to learn about yourself. Yeah, I get bored with myself sometimes.
Well, we need a break sometimes, so it's fun to contrast.
Yeah.
And
I want to say too, James wasn't here today. He's been on the last couple few or whatever, but I'm really grateful to him for starting that Facebook, you know, for the very important projectors. And I've learned so much just from that community of people, you know, about all kinds of stuff. And when I've gone through problems, I throw something out there and I get, you know, 50 different comments of, I mean, they're not all different, but they're, you know, just people's helping another projector out, you know.
and everyone sees different things,
like,
don't they? People
yeah,
kind of see different things, and
right.
Yeah, it's a great group.
You know, a bunch of projectors that all have, you know, different levels of experience, or, you know, whether it even has anything to do with human design or whatever. So
Right.
I mean, I just want to thank him for starting that. That was a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, well, anyone watching this, for some reason it doesn't come up as it's more, seems like more of an underground group when you search for being a projector in human design. But
Right.
if anyone,
they are closed. Yeah, they're closed groups. So I don't remember how I found them. I guess I just kind of. I don't remember.
I think if you know, if people want to be in there, and it's the thing I love is it's about storytelling, and it's about people's lived experiences, which may or may not be what the theory says it should be. And you know, something like this, the cool thing about this is we get to actually see, how do I feel in my body when I'm hanging out with Ron, and Ron's self-projected projector? How do I feel when Dunstan talks and he's a splenic energy projector, like, and he's got the the right angle cross, blah blah blah. So and this is just amongst projectors, but then we can extend that and say, oh, interesting. What do we notice about how manifestors engage with us, or how generators come towards us, or how manifesting generators feel a bit different from generators, and we can start to feel the differences with the different types and go back and forth with the theory and sort of test it out. So that's a lot of fun.
Like I've done just about everybody I work with at work, so I know like what my bosses are, like everybody up above me that is in my immediate area. I know who they are. Whether they want to know who they are, they don't always aren't that interested, but I have their chart. So, and now I see like why they act a certain way, or like I got a projector, a reflector, a generator, a manifesting generator, and a manifester.
Full
Manifester, she was my boss, but she moved on to bigger and better things, got to keep moving up the boss ladder,
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so so it's interesting, like you said, to be around each of those people, kind of know what they are and see how we interact and how it feels to interact with different,
So does your reflector colleague have any interest or awareness or insight into human design?
I told her, and she wasn't very interested. Then I told her how special she actually was.
Did you tell her she's a unicorn?
Yes, and she loved that. She was like, now she's kind of all on it. She still hasn't like gotten interested enough to delve into the chart, which I gave her. But I've tried to learn a little bit more about reflectors to see, and she's a peer support specialist, so she deals with the peer support of all these people in the building, gets their needs met or helps them out with whatever they need, So and she is I can see as she's very empathetic and aware of people, but we've talked a little bit, and she tells me, like she gets real anxiety when she goes to the grocery store and doesn't like big crowds of people. And I've tried to, tell her some stuff. She's not really open to it all the time. So I have to be very, I have to wait for my invitation.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes I don't wait for the invitation. I just do it, But I'm not sure that gets anywhere if you do that. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But it's
well,
fun.
I guess also with reflectors, for them it takes time for them to build trust. They don't change direction in a hurry. They're waiting for a long time to deepen in relationship.
Right. Takes a month or whatever. Right. 20 days, 29 days. Yeah.
And all reflectors are so different from one another as well, depending on where their gates are. So it's
right. That's interesting. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if she's got the. Was it the one was it the 20 that's opposite the 12, the 22? What was the hanging gate that we were looking at earlier? The 12 and the 22, right?
12 and the 22, yeah.
As a hanging gate. Then she's going to have that sort of manifestor energy for a while.
Right.
So
that's an interesting thing too, is like my girlfriend, she has the money line channel. I have 12, and then the transit brings in the 22. Then I have 35 and she has 36. So when we're together, we have all three of those manifesting channels.
Wow.
So,
all manifesting from the will and the.
I don't know what that means necessarily. Does that give you the power to manifest anything you want? I mean, she's always she's trying to get her business going, so.
I read somewhere that it's something activating the current transit. So, for example, you with this emotional center, with this manifesting capability, that it's like it's trying to pull you off your center, like it's trying to get you to be a manifestor. It's but it's actually not the truth of you. So it's
Oh, okay. Right.
yeah, maybe like a bit of a test or something.
Ah, okay.
But who you really are is your emotional center is not defined.
Right.
But I've had this happen sometimes in relationship where, you know, I was hanging out a lot with my friend who's a manifesting generator, and she's a sacral man-gen. I'm splenic, but our composite chart has the emotional center activated.
Okay.
So it's like between us that so there's that sort of a bit of turmoil and volatility present in the dynamic, but you know,
Right.
neither of us are emotional authority. So it's
Right.
I feel that sometimes like we're both avoiding conflict and truth, but there's this quite a lot of emotional energy and turbulence there, but we're sort of both a bit like, you know, don't want to go there. So,
Right.
so that's interesting, but I'm still learning about that very much. So I mean, I guess the thing is, the longer you're in this experiment, of course, we change on a cellular level, but also we get to observe more interactions, and we have more data points to be able to get that clarity on, you know, who's who and what's what over time.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, any final words? Would you have any words for what would you advise for someone coming into human design that discovers they're a self-projected projector? If there was one little nugget you could share with that person, what would it be?
I guess it would be just to know yourself and trust yourself. You know, those are the two biggest things that I've learned, is that know yourself and trust yourself, because the outside world will tell me contradictory things, and I've noticed that works for them. That's not necessarily my truth, you know. And to just know that what's coming out of my gut, not out of my head, but out of my gut, my heart, is the truth. It's the right thing, you know. And my brain will talk me out of stuff constantly, and then that's where I make the mistakes, because I follow my head, and then I go with that, and then I'm like, oh man, my gut told me to do this, you know. Or that if I listen to, you know, if I give somebody advice, just to listen to that, it's words of wisdom, you know.
Awesome. I love it.
Awesome.
I love it. Yeah, super cool. Well, Ron, thank you so much for
Thank you very much,
sharing
Doug.
so openly.
Thank you, Susan.
And we'll see. I'm sure we'll see you on another chat sometime soon. And
Yes,
yeah, see you in Facebook land.
Excuse
All
me.
right.
Thank you for letting me chime in. I really appreciated that. It was really interesting, both of you.
Thank
Yes.
you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Hopefully we
awesome.
get to see you one day.
I'm a little shy, but I'm getting there. I'm
well,
emotional.
we got plenty more slots before the end of the year if you want
Right.
to jump on sometime.
I'm
but
an emotional 2-4, so
there we go.
I'm an emotional 2-4. Yeah, so I'm a little shy, but
yeah.
once you get to know me, you couldn't shut me up.
You blossom. Right, there you go.
Well, I'll look forward to that.
Be careful what you wish for.
Wonderful. Well, let's wrap up there, and I'm going to stop the recording.